What is up, Packer fans? Welcome in to an all-new episode of the Pack-A-Day podcast. Of course, I am your host, Andy Herman. You can follow me on Twitter at Andy Herman NFL. You can follow the podcast at Pack-A-Day Podcast. Before we jump into today's episode, a quick shout-out to brand new Pack-A-Day Podcast YouTube members, Kyle Demers, Gerard, and SoCal Pack Ball Cheddar, who is an all-pro member. Thank you, all three of you, for signing up. If you have not yet checked out those memberships, make sure to do so. 4 different tiers available to you. You're going to want to check it out, especially with training camp right around the corner. Speaking of which, I do have a bit of an announcement. I know a lot of you were a huge fans of the Ross Uglum daily draft episodes. I have great news for all of you. Ross is going to be joining me once again, not just for daily draft, but he is going to be joining me during training camp, during the season, and putting out additional content here on the channel as well, both on the audio channel and on the video YouTube channel as well. These will be Ross-centric episodes. He will do basically what will kind of be a version of Packer Report TV. They will be posted on Packer Report and again on both the Pack-A-Day Podcast YouTube and audio channels. Some of these videos will be for everyone. Some of them will be members only. There'll be some additional members only content out there for you, but there will be more Ross Uglum in your life, which is only a good thing. So super excited about that upcoming as well. As I'm recording this today, 12:19 in the morning on July 16th, there is still no Jordan Love contract. Still not super concerned, still not super worried. We are ticking closer and closer to that sort of quote unquote training camp deadline. There's no real true deadline on that date. It was just a date that I think both sides would have liked to have it done by. It could still be done by training camp. They could open training camp by announcing a Jordan Love extension. That would certainly go hand in hand with the excitement of the first day of camp, with the shareholders meeting, and with a brand new Jordan Love contract. It's not the worst PR move in the world. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that could be within the realm. And, again, I'm not overly panicked yet by any means. Even if it's not done first day of camp, still not panicked. That first day of preseason, if it's not done, or as we get closer and closer to preseason, then it becomes a bit more of an issue. And I really don't think you want this to be a talking point going into camp. I'll just put it this way. Everything at this point for Green Bay should be a positive. You're a young, up-and-coming team. There's solid expectations for you. There's a young core. You just signed Josh Jacobs and Xavier McKinney. You had another really impressive draft class, at least on paper. There should be nothing but excitement and good news and positivity surrounding this team. If all of a sudden that gets into constant conversations about Jordan Love's contract, it changes it just a little bit. Nothing egregious, nothing major, but it does just change the temperature of that just a little bit, I should say. But again, as of now, all good, no concerns. But we are inching closer to that time where, all right, it's going to be kind of maybe more annoying, not worrisome, not troublesome. It's going to get done at some point, but more of just eking in that annoying sort of phase. All right, that brings us to our main topic for today. And that is, we all know Jordan Love's contract is, again, going to get done at some point. We just did the full deep dive of everything you need to know of what happened with Jordan Love in 2023. And now I kind of want to look at what should our expectations be for 2024. He's going to be probably one of the highest paid players in all of football. And everyone is, I'm sure, hoping to some extent that Jordan Love takes another step forward in year 2 as a starter. That's a logical conclusion to jump to because last year was his first year as a starter. You would think with a little bit more experience under his belt and really with the opportunity last year, those first half of the year, again, wasn't quite as good. He picked up the second half of the season and just the offense in general just looked better. You would think that hopefully he picks up where he leaves off and you get more likely at least a 16-17 game season of that second half of Jordan Love. And if you can do that, well, certainly you're going to be in a very good place this year for Jordan. But I wanted to look at maybe some correlation from some other quarterbacks, some that we know well, some that are from around the league right now, and how they went from their year 1 as a starter to their year 2 as a starter, and if it got better, if it got worse, and how that would correlate to Jordan Love if he took the same progression or if he took the same regression as those specific quarterbacks. So we'll look at all of those. In order to understand where we're going, we have to understand where we've been, specifically with Jordan Love in 2023. For those who may have forgot, he completed 372 passes on 579 attempts, a 64.2% completion percentage, 4,159 yards passing, 32 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. He also added 50 carries for 247 yards and 4 touchdowns. Those were his numbers in 2023. He had an 83.6 PFF grade. For me, he had a plus 16.7 grade leading the entire team and clearly had a very impressive 2023 campaign. Now, I know wins are not a quarterback stat, but it's still noteworthy nonetheless. The team was 9-8 on the season with Jordan Love as a starter. They were 1-1 in the playoffs, and they went 10-9 overall. So again, what we're trying to figure out here are what should the expectations be in 2024? And where I wanted to start with this, before I get into some of my own sort of expectations and hopes for Jordan Love in 2024, again, I wanted to look at some of the other quarterbacks and see how they made a jump or, again, took a step back and how that would correlate to Jordan Love. So let's look at Aaron Rodgers, first of all. In his first season as a starter, he went 341 of 536, so 341 completions on 536 attempts, 63.6% completion percentage, 4,038 yards, 28 touchdowns, 13 picks, and had a 6-10 record. In year 2, he went 350 completions on 541 attempts, 64.7%, so from 63.6 to 64.7%. He went from 4,038 yards to 4,434. He went from 28 touchdowns to 30 touchdowns. He went from 13 interceptions to only 7 interceptions. And again, he went from a 6-10 record to an 11-5 record. All right, what would that equate to if Jordan Love made the same percentage jumps that Aaron Rodgers did from year 1 to year 2? Jordan Love's stats in 2024 would be a 65.3% completion percentage, 4,567 yards passing, 34 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. Those would statistically, mathematically be the same numbers that he would have if he took the same jump that Aaron Rodgers did from year 1 as a starter to year 2 as a starter. 65.3% completion percentage, 4,500 yards, 34 touchdowns, 6 picks. That'd be a pretty good season. How about Brett Favre? Brett Favre I'm going to say 1993. 92, I know he played almost the entirety of the year, but we'll count that as not a full season. So we'll say 1993 was his first full season as a starter. So for Favre, 318 completions on 522 attempts, 60.9% completion percentage, 3,303 yards, 19 touchdowns, 24 interceptions, a 9-7 record. So he then in 94 went from 60.9% completion percentage to 62.4, 3,303 yards to 3,882 yards, 19 touchdowns to 33 touchdowns, pretty significant jump, 24 interceptions to only 14 interceptions, a big drop down there. And unfortunately for Green Bay, only a 9-7 record still. So Favre improved drastically in that second year, but their record unfortunately did not. If Jordan took the same jump that Brett Favre did from 1993 to 1994, here would be Jordan Love's numbers in 2024. He'd have a 65.8% completion percentage, 4,888 yards, 56 touchdowns, and 6 interceptions. That would be a pretty remarkable jump, but that would be if he took the same jump that Brett Favre did from 93 to 94. How about Jalen Hurts? Somebody from the same draft class who started clearly before Jordan had the opportunity to start, but how about his full year 1 as a starter to his second year as a starter? In year 1, 61.3% completion percentage. That jumped to 66.5% in year 2. In year 1, 3,144 yards passing. In year 2, 3,701. 16 touchdowns in year 1, 22 in year 2. 9 interceptions in year 1, only 6 in year 2. How would that equate if Jordan Love took the same jump as Jalen Hurts? he would have a 69.6% completion percentage, 4,896 yards, 44 touchdowns, only 7 interceptions. So again, we're talking about some video game numbers here if he takes similar jumps as to some of these quarterbacks. How about Josh Allen? Josh Allen in his first full year as a starter in 2019 had a 58.8% completion percentage. He followed that up in 2020 with a 69.2% completion percentage from 58.8 to 69.2. He went from 3,089 yards to 4,544 yards. He went from 20 touchdowns to 37 touchdowns. He went from 9 interceptions to 10 interceptions. So a significant jump for Josh Allen in year 2. If Jordan Love took the same jump that Josh Allen did from year 1 as a starter to year 2 as a starter, Jordan Love's numbers would be 75.5% completion percentage, 6,118 yards, 59 touchdowns, and 12 interceptions. So let's just pray that Jordan Love takes the same leap that that Josh Allen did from year 1 to year 2. How about Patrick Mahomes? This blew me away, by the way. I did not recall Patrick Mahomes' first year as a starter. It is insane. Mahomes, first year as a starter, completed 66% of his passes, 5,097 yards, 50 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 12-4 record as a starter in his first year. Just beyond ridiculous. However, in year 2, he actually did take a little bit of a step back. He went from 66% completion percentage to 65.9, nothing major there. But 5,097 yards to only 4,031. He did miss a couple games in that season. He went from 50 touchdowns to only 26. He did go from 12 picks to only 5, and he had an 11-3 record as a starter instead of 12-4. So he basically played in only 2 fewer games, but had a far less productive season, at least from a yards and a touchdown standpoint. If Jordan Love, we'll say, regressed in the similar way to that Patrick Mahomes did from year 1 to year 2 as a starter, Jordan Love's stats would be 64.1% completion percentage, 3,289 yards, 17 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. So fairly pedestrian numbers on the, I guess, from an overall standpoint. Hopefully Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd are doing work in the running game if those were to be his numbers this upcoming season. And last but not least, Trevor Lawrence. He went from year 1 as a starter, 59.6% completion percentage, to 66.3 in year 2. He went from 3,641 yards passing to 4,113. He went from 12 touchdowns to 25 touchdowns. He went from 17 interceptions to only 8 interceptions, and went from a 3-14 record to a 9-8 record. If Jordan Love made the same jump that Trevor Lawrence did from year 1 to year 2, he would have a 71.4% completion percentage, 4,698 yards, 67 touchdowns, and only 5 interceptions. So again, hopefully he takes that type of jump as well. Now, clearly, these are some ridiculous video game-esque numbers, and in no way, shape, or form am I suggesting that Jordan should or will or could take any significant step where he's going to put up the absurd video game numbers that we just went over. But if we look at the worst case scenario for those numbers, all of them, the worst case would be a 65.3% completion percentage, which would have been the Aaron Rodgers completion percentage improvement. The worst yards would be 3,289 yards. The worst touchdowns was 17, and the most interceptions was 12. So that's like the very worst side of this. 65.3, 3,300 yards, 17 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. The best would have been 75.5% completion percentage, 6,100 yards, 67 touchdowns, only 5 interceptions. Let's put those aside. These were for, again, kind of entertainment purposes only, just for fun. But let's say he gets 3% worse or 3% better this upcoming season. Just 3%. Just 3% worse or 3% better, somewhere within the same vicinity in which he played from a season ago. If he got 3% better, Jordan Love would have a 66.1% completion percentage, throw for 4,284 yards, 33 touchdowns, and 11 interceptions. Just 3% better. If he got 2% better, he'd have 65.5% completion percentage, 4,242 yards, 33 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. If he got 2% worse than where he was a season ago. 62.9% completion percentage, 4,076 yards, 31 touchdowns, 11 interceptions. And if he got 3% worse, he'd have a 62.3% completion percentage, 4,034 yards, 31 touchdowns, 11 picks. So even if he gets 3% worse from where he was a season ago, you're still looking at 62% completion percentage, over 4,000 yards, 31 touchdowns, 11 picks. That is not too shabby, even if he does take a small step backwards. How about 5%? Let's say he's 5% worse. He'd have a 61% completion percentage, almost 4,000 yards, 30 touchdowns, 12 picks. If he gets 5% worse than he was at a season ago, that is still a really solid year for Jordan Love. And if he were to get 5% better, 67.4% completion percentage, almost 4,400 yards, 34 touchdowns, only 10 interceptions. So we're probably talking again somewhere in that range. Now throw all the numbers aside. Again, whatever he becomes this season, it'll probably be somewhere similar to where he was, give or take a certain percentage. And it's not all going to be linear. He might take a small step forward in completion percentage. He might remain about the same in yards. He might take a small step forward or a large step forward in touchdowns. He might take a step backwards in interceptions. Like, these things don't always correlate one-to-one. It could be a variety where we see some improvement in some categories and some regression in others. And in all likelihood, there will be some things that he'll have to learn still in 2024 and some things that undoubtedly he will get better at as well. Here's my expectations / hopes for Jordan Love in 2024. Number one, and I talked about this the other day, just small, consistent improvements. I don't need to see Jordan Love going to all Hall of Fame in 2024. If he does, awesome. Congratulations. That'd be amazing. We'll all take that. Goes without saying. But again, usually there is a process to improvement, and that's all I'm looking for here. And I'm sure that Matt LaFleur and Tom Clements and everyone else is telling him a similar thing. This doesn't need to be all of a sudden he's the number one quarterback in the NFL. And again, if it happens, great. I'm certainly not going to turn it down. But can there just be small incremental improvements? He proved by any standard that you want to set against him last year that he is a dude. He is a really fantastic quarterback. Where you want to rank him, I don't care. Top 10, top 5, top 2, top 17, whatever. It doesn't matter to me. He's shown that he can be a very good quarterback. Now, can you just make those steps forward? And of course, the last thing we want to see is steps backwards, or again, just a plateau. I'll even add this on top of it. If he were to plateau with what we saw as his high end from a season ago, that's a phenomenal plateau. I don't think that's going to happen, but that's not the worst place for him to end. If last year, end of season Jordan Love was the best version of Jordan Love, but we get that consistently, cool. I would probably sign up for that. I don't think there'd be any major issue. I'm hoping he takes more steps forward. But again, what we saw end of last year was freaking fantastic. Number 2, ball placement. And what I mean here isn't necessarily completion percentage. I'm talking specifically about ball placement for his wide receivers. When I went back and did the deep dive of his tape, there were plenty of completions where his wide receivers had to do a little extra work, or they didn't catch it in stride because they had to make an adjustment for the ball. Those are the things that are going to unlock players like Luke Musgrave, Tucker Kraft, Jaden Reed, Bo Melton, Christian Watson, Romeo Doubs, etc. If those guys can catch those passes in stride and continue at a fast pace with their momentum going in the right direction, it's going to help everyone. And you're never going to be too upset with a completion in the scheme of the play and Jordan doing everything that he can to get the ball to his wide receivers. Sometimes it's not going to be perfect. That's just what it is. Like, sometimes you get the ball to your receiver in any way necessary. And if they have to go make a play on the ball, sometimes they have to go make a play on the ball. But there were enough of those instances where I want to see it improve so that those players can catch in stride and make bigger plays because of it. And that will help everyone. For Jordan, the yards per completion will go up. The, adjusted net yards per attempt will go up. Like all of these things, any advanced analytic will go up if you are doing better on a per completion basis. And just hitting receivers in stride will go a long way in being a positive in that direction and becoming an even better quarterback and an even more efficient quarterback this upcoming season. Number 3, I want to see those layups be hit with every ounce of consistency imaginable. Matt LaFleur does a tremendous job in finding ways to scheme open wide receivers. That's not an easy thing to do. And you might say, listen, I watch this offense. It's not like guys are running free all the time. No, they're not. Defenses are really smart. They're really freaking good. They don't make a habit out of leaving guys wide open or getting open with any level of consistency. But Matt, per game, will usually find a handful of plays to get guys open. And when you get those opportunities, you can't miss the layups. There's one play in particular last year where they have this play where they kind of fake it and Musgrave gets up the left sideline and they had the opportunity to hit it multiple times. It wasn't always Jordan's fault, but something went wrong with it every single time. And, that's what should be a layup for the offense. I'm not just talking Jordan here, that Matt drew up for them on multiple occasions and they could just never hit it. And there were multiple times where Jordan had easy completions at his disposal and he just couldn't hit it. And that's going to be something that needs to get better. That goes with ball placement and accuracy as well. But when you get those opportunities, and I'm not even talking deep down the field, I'm talking these are 5 to 10 yard plays that are easy completions, check downs that are easy completions. You just have to hit those layups. They are so important and they're momentum killers. If you've got a guy open and you miss it, it just is like it just kills the entire drive more often than not. So make your layups. Number 4, the deep ball accuracy. Now, the great news here is that we saw a pretty marked improvement from the beginning of the season till the end of the season. Beginning of the season was really tough with deep ball accuracy. It got better as the season went along, but I think there's still a lot of meat on that bone for Jordan, and I think he can continue to get, really, much better at throwing a more consistent deep ball. I expect this to be an offense that continues to work to set up those shot plays down the field. For one, I think having a consistent running game with hopefully an explosive Josh Jacobs and Marshawn Lloyd will help set up your deep ball down the field. And number 2, I think Matt's going to trust Jordan, that he's got the arm, he's got the playmaking ability, and they have the wide receivers and the tight ends, quite frankly, to get up the seam, get down the field, and make explosive plays. It is ridiculously tough in the modern NFL to put together 15-play, 80-yard drives. It is so hard. Can you do it, every now and again? Sure. But are you going to put up a bunch of points doing it that way? You're just not. It's way too hard. You're going to have to find a way to get explosives, whether that be on offense, defense, special teams. It doesn't matter. You can get them in a variety of different ways, but you have to get explosive plays. And if you don't, you're just making your day really, really hard at the office because defenses are going to know what you're going to do. They're so adept at making sure that you go on these long extended drives. You're not getting those explosive plays, and they're betting that you're going to screw it up along the way. And more often offenses do. They really do. You're not going to be able to block the opposing defensive line for 15 consecutive plays. You're not going to be able to go without having a false start or a holding penalty or something that derails you. And more often than not, that is the case. So you got to get those big time plays. And I expect Green Bay to call a lot of those big time plays. And it's going to be up to Jordan to make sure that he has that deep ball accuracy, especially when those big plays are available to this offense. Number 5, the knowledge and wisdom of knowing when to pull out the wonky fundamentals. I talked about this with Aaron a lot, especially later in his career. Aaron was so good early in his career at ad-libbing and letting the play break down almost as like the default instead of playing within the rhythm of the offense and then going and making a crazy play. And it worked so freaking well and so freaking often that like that again kind of became his default setting. But as his career went on, and this is not again to bash Aaron here, Aaron went on to have multiple phenomenal years past this, but as time went on, there were times where he struggled to make the same level of ad-lib plays, and he sort of almost had to reprogram himself to play a little bit more within the offense. It was right around the time when Matt came to Green Bay, and he kind of, in my opinion, reworked himself a little bit. And that's when we saw, again, a different version of Aaron. But he, one of the things I talked about all the time then was I wanted to see him play within the structure of the offense consistently and then make those ad-lib plays as needed on huge third downs or in the fourth quarter when you're losing. Then go make those plays. But until then, play within the structure of the offense. It's a similar story here for Jordan, but not as much playing within the structure of the offense as playing within the structure of your fundamentals. Can you, through the vast majority of the game, play with the most sound fundamentals that you can possibly have? I understand that when a play breaks down and when there's an edge rusher, barreling down at you, and it makes it really, really difficult to have that regular arm motion or arm angle or footwork, whatever it might be. I get that. I understand that. That's when you need to pull out the wonky arm angle or the odd footwork and throw off your back foot or whatever it is you need to do. That I get that. But can you save it for those moments? Can you have the good fundamentals when the pocket is clean? And I think that's a step that he can take as well. I think it's making sure that if you do have that clean pocket, if you are within the scheme of the offense, set your feet, make the right read, use the right arm angle, and complete it. Again, hopefully hitting them in stride so that they have the ability to make that big play, hitting those layups in the process, hitting those deep balls down the field. Now, we saw Jordan be able to throw from a variety of arm angles, from a variety of, throwing off his back foot, all of it. We saw it, and he still completed 64.4% of his passes, was it? Yeah, 64.2, 32 touchdowns, only 11 picks. He was still successful. But I think those numbers can be even better if he plays with even better fundamentals when he has the ability to, and again, have the wisdom to only pull out the wonky stuff when you need to, knowing that he can still pull off the wonky stuff because he's just that good. Number 6 is let the playmakers do the heavy lifting. And this is when I thought we saw the offense really take off at the end of last year. This is not, I know this sounds like let him be a game manager. I'm not necessarily saying that. I also don't think that's a derogatory way of thinking about it. What you kind of want quarterbacks to do is be game managers the vast majority of the game. And then when you need those moments here or there to go and ad-lib and make a big play, you have the ability to do so. You usually don't want to build the offense out of having to ad-lib and make crazy plays. You want the offense to function in and of itself and allow the playmakers to do the heavy lifting. And that's what I want to see. That's when I thought this offense was at its best, was when Jordan showed the ability to be the point guard, distribute to all those playmakers. The offense had a better understanding how to utilize those playmakers, and then Jordan could still make the big plays as needed. Continue that process. Number 7 is stay consistent. We saw Jordan, for the most part, avoid any of the big catastrophic games. And we did see him have some pretty impressive games, right? Some ones that really stood out. But what you want to see is avoiding the peaks and the valleys. You don't want to see him just go high, high, low, low, high, high. You want to see that level of consistency. That's going to be the next step for him. We saw what he's capable of. We saw it for a pretty good sample size. Now, can you just make that the standard? And if he can make that the standard, again, that in and of itself is going to be a pretty big jump for Jordan. Number 8, try to limit the sacks even more. He had 30 sacks against him in 2023. Clearly, that's not all on him. Sometimes that's just bad offensive line play or just a really good pass rusher play. But can he find a way to get the ball out of his hands even quicker and make it so that he's not taking some of those sacks and trying to cut down on those a little bit? Number 9, improve the efficiency in the red zone. Get those efficiency numbers even up. Make sure that you're making the plays when needed, but also, again, distributing, finding those playmakers. And, obviously, again, this is up to the offensive line and the receivers and tight ends as well. It's not just Jordan, but seeing if you can raise that efficiency in the red zone. And then number 10, understanding when to run and when to protect himself. Thought there were times last year where he could have run and he didn't. Thought there were times where he did run where he probably shouldn't have. And I thought there were times where he did run and he maybe took a hit where he probably should have protected himself. So those are things that you just kind of learn over the time and space of being a quarterback in the NFL. Doesn't come on year one, day one. It's going to take that, really becoming a veteran in the league, the game slowing down. And I think those things will start to come for Jordan as we go further along into his career. So my expectations / hopes, small consistent improvements, better ball placement, hit those layups, better deep ball accuracy, know when to pull out those wonky fundamentals. Let the playmakers do the heavy lifting. Stay consistent. Try to limit those sacks. Have the efficiency in the red zone or improve it. And then know when to run and when to protect yourself. I'll say it one more time. Jordan does not need these monumental improvements. Just small incremental improvements and tweaks here and there that can make him even a better quarterback and more of an assassin, more of a technician at that quarterback position. Just stay consistent, take small steps, improve by 2%. And again, if he improves by 2%, you're looking at a 65.5% completion percentage, 4,200 yards, 33 touchdowns, 11 picks. I don't think anyone's going to be too upset if that would be Jordan's stat line in 2024. We don't need a Josh Allen, Trevor Lawrence size jump. We just need the Jordan Love that showed up at the end of last season and continue signs of growth, because we know that is what he is capable of. I think we would all agree that we believe that Jordan Love is capable of even more. Let's see what that more is and if he can achieve it this upcoming season. That is going to do it for me today. Thank you so much for joining me. I'll be right back here tomorrow with an all-new episode. You're not going to want to miss it. Make sure to like, subscribe, comment, give those 5-star reviews. Shout out to our Hall of Fame and All-Pro members, Most Hated Minnesotan, PJ Wynn, John Wild, Shea Bradad, Brandon Paletta, Jennifer Wright, Boom Handle, Donna Lee, Lori Lord, Baby QB, David McCluskey, Donald Decker, Dan Miller, Alex Hwang, Arnaldo Espinoza, Peter Ataka, Caleb Cookster, and SoCal Pack. See you soon. Until next time. And as always, go Pack Go.